Although it may be called Shades of Green now, at some point in history this used to be Disney's golf resort. It was one of the few resorts they had on property, so they had the bungalow villas, they had the contemporary resort, the Polynesian resort, and they had the golf resort. And the golf resort was home to 2 championship golf courses that were on the PGA Tour and so on and so on. Over time it evolved and it became Shades of Green, which is now a military-themed resort. So active duty and retired military members can come here and they can actually get a room at a discounted rate. So it's a kind of a salute to the military, which is a great thing, don't get me wrong. But I do miss it being the golf resort. The golf resort was something pretty cool and pretty interesting. It was different, and it was one of the places we stayed along the way at times when we'd come here to visit the parks because it was convenient. It was close by. The Polynesian is within a stone's throw of here. I can show you that in just a second, but it's really close, and you could actually do some fun things and be staying on property without having to pay the same price as staying at, say, the Contemporary. And it was really always fun. I like this resort a lot. I kind of miss the fact that now I don't stay here anymore. But that's a piece of history. We'll talk a little bit about the golf resort and what it looked like and what it was like at the time. When the original idea for the Walt Disney World Resort started to come together, the Disney company realized that they would have to have some sort of golfing available to wealthy industrialists and other people who might bring business to the Walt Disney World Resort. So they knew they had to have golfing. So they started off with a clubhouse and a couple of championship level golf courses, the Palm and the Magnolia, that opened with the resort in 1971. Then in 1973, they expanded out and added 150 guest rooms to the complex to make sure that people had a place to stay. Now, the entirety of it, the guest rooms, the golf, they were all available to anyone who wanted to visit. So it made it kind of interesting and compelling in a way. And we wound up staying at the golf resort a number of times when I was growing up. Now this is what the exterior of the golf resort looked like. It was very much made of stone and wood and timbers and so forth, and it had this feeling like almost like a country club. The interior was decorated in a typical 1970s style that looked something like this, a little bit quirky if you will, but it worked out well. They put the brochures out and they invited people to come over and visit, stay, and golf at the resort. It was a pretty clever idea, and the marketing worked okay, though not as well as Disney might have liked. Now they did have a Mickey Mouse themed sand trap along the way, which always was compelling in its own way, but really what the draw was that they partnered with the PGA and Jack Nicklaus specifically to design up several championships and the holes so that they would be at the level of play that would make it interesting for people to come there, and they started some championships that they would play at the resort at different times.
For those with no work and all play on their minds, the Golf Resort Hotel offers 36 holes of beautiful championship golf right outside the door. There's a swimming pool and tennis facilities too. And the Golf Resort's completely equipped pro shop carries a wide variety of shopping selections for the sports-minded vacationer.
Of course, that was an early version of Resort TV's look at the golf resort. Let's look at a later one that appeared in the early 90s.
A good portion of the 43-square-mile vacation kingdom has been devoted to golf, with not one, but 3 challenging 18-hole golf courses. Flanking the Walt Disney World Golf Resort Hotel, the Palm Course is rated as one of the 100 best tests of golf in America. And speaking of the 100 best, top players on the PGA Tour gather on the 3 courses each year for the Walt Disney World National Team Championship Golf Classic. But golf is just one type of Walt Disney World Sports Challenge. We've got sports for all sorts.
But as you may guess, Disney realized the occupancy was really low on the golf resort, and people didn't really get the fact that it was an available resort just like the Contemporary and the Polynesian. So in 1986, they decided to retheme it the Disney Inn. Now this went along with some of the things they were doing when they were thinking about the Disney Institute and some of their own future, but the Disney Inn worked, and they actually rethemed it to kind of go with a Snow White sort of theme, so that Sleepy was there and it kind of worked out in a way that it felt more like it was a Disney-sponsored resort. Now, they kept most of the amenities the same. They did retheme the inside of the rooms just a little bit to look more like this, and it does have that sort of early 80s feel to it with sort of the color palettes and the things that we're doing there, but it was still a great place to stay. The exterior looked almost exactly the same. They didn't change very much about it, except for maybe some of the furnishings that were around. But otherwise, if you walked onto the property in the late 1980s, it looked just like it did during the 1970s. So that kind of worked out well. Now, the other part of it was that they still kept the idea of the golf resort alive because they still had their golf classic and the other golfing tournaments that they did there and still invited people to come and play there. So they still had something going on that worked. It just wasn't exactly what they were thinking of.
Walt Disney World Resort has 3 challenging 18-hole courses to choose from. Tee off on the Palm or Magnolia courses at the Disney Inn, or try the links at the Lake Buena Vista Club. These 3 beautiful courses host the Walt Disney World Golf Classic each fall, but they'll make you feel like a tournament player any time of the year. For the little putters, there's even a Wee Links course, 6 holes of golf for juniors and just beginners. For tee times at any of our golf courses, call the Master Starter at 824-2270. Take advantage of the Walt Disney World Golf Studio at the Disney Inn and Lake Buena Vista Club for some professional tips to improve your game. The Golf Studio analyzes your swing and style of play, then fine-tunes your game. Call the Master Starter for a Golf Studio session. It's open to golfers of all ages with reduced rates for juniors.
But then 2 things happened. After about 5 years at the Disney Inn, Disney realized that they weren't making as much money and the occupancy was still low. And in the meantime, the military was looking to build a US-based resort for its service members, places where people could go on vacation and enjoy themselves with their families. So they approached Disney about some sort of partnership. So in the early 1990s, Disney offered discounts and resort packages to active duty and retired military members as a part of the program called Salute to the Military. Then, in about 1994, Disney decided to lease what was known as the Golf Resort or the Disney Inn to the military that they rethemed as Shades of Green. That Shades of Green resort became exactly what the military had in mind for having a place where active duty and retired service members could come and stay and enjoy themselves and have a discounted vacation. It was so wildly successful that in 1996, Disney sold the entirety of the golf resort, or what was now known as Shades of Green, to the U.S. military. The U.S. military tore down most of the buildings and restarted with something completely new. Now, Disney still owns the land underneath, and they provide the bus service, but you need an ID, you need to be a service member or a guest of the service member in order to enter the property, so that's why there's no video from within. Anyway, that's the story of the golf resort and how it came to be Shades of Green and what became of it at that point. Disney has many more golf courses, many more places to stay on property than they did, even when they turned it over to the U.S. military as the golf resort. So the next time you're on the monorail, between where the Grand Floridian and the Polynesian are, look out to the other side, and you should be able to see the golf resort there, or now Shades of Green, and remember its history.